Now, of course, in circles of fandom, probably the biggest topic of conversation for the past 600 years has been the whole issue of Justice League and Snyder Cut and all that kind of stuff. Now, of course, eventually Warner Brothers relented and they decided, okay, we will make and release Snyder Cut. They put up $70 million. They let it go into production. They put it out on HBO Max. That was what they did. Did they get anything out of it? Probably not. We've known there were stories before in Deadline about, being in the double digits of millions of dollars that they actually lost on the whole conversion, whatever. But now comes a story out of Variety that Warner Brothers executives are actually just straight up saying, we regret that we released the thing. We think it was the wrong move. This comes from the folks at The Direct who wrote the following. In a recent report about DC's future challenges with Warner Brothers Discovery, Variety revealed that studio insiders have shared regret over the release of Zack Snyder's Justice League on HBO Max in 2021. Instead of silencing the grassroots online campaign to hashtag release the Snyder Cut, the outlet sources claim that the 4-hour HBO Max feature only further entrenched the Snyderverse fan base against the leadership at the studio and at DC in particular, leading Warner Brothers insiders to lament that Zack Snyder's Justice League never should have happened. In a related report from Rolling Stone, the outlet claimed that the new heads of Warner Brothers Discovery have no intention of reviving the Snyderverse or partnering with director Zack Snyder in the future. And that comes to us from The Direct. Okay, that's inflammatory in and of itself, for sure. But there's a couple of different angles to look at this from. First of all, let me say this. Other than Birds of Prey and the Emancipation of Harley Quinn, I have liked every DC movie. I make no apologies for it. Fuck y'all if you have a problem with that. I don't care. I liked all of them, except for that one. I mean,
I'm leaving. I'm done.
Jonathan's out. I enjoyed some more than others, clearly, some more than others, but I've had a good time watching all of them. And that includes the theatrical release of Justice League. I had a good time watching it. I went back to theater, watched it a couple of times. Was the HBO Max 4-hour version as good as the theatrical one? It was better. It was a better cut. Would have died in the movie theaters at 4 hours, but it was, to me at any rate, it was the better version of the movie. It was an improvement. But if you were Warner Brothers, would you feel regret over the release of the film in the first place? I don't think initially, but I think eventually they grew to regret it. And I think there are two primary reasons why. One is the obvious one. They straight up lost money on the deal. Putting up an additional $70 million, they did not recoup with new subscriptions to HBO Max or anything like that. It was simply money burned, which is one of the many myriad of reasons that Jason Kilar was not going to be kept around when the new ownership came in. So one is they lost money. But I think number two is the reason that I think they didn't regret it at first, but they grew to regret it was this. And this is the thing that I've always lamented about what we as fandom can be sometimes. I liken it unto this. The neighborhood kids come to your window every day saying, Mrs. Jones, please, can you give us a lemon lollipop? And finally, Mrs. Jones relents and says, okay, fine. Here's your lemon lollipop. And she hands it to the boys outside of her kitchen window and they go, great, fuck you. And they turn around and leave. That is what Snyder Cut fans did to DC and Warner Brothers when the Snyder Cut got released. Instead of hey, you know what? We as a collective fan group, we want to say thank you to Warner Brothers for putting up $70 million extra dollars and delivering this version of the film that we have really wanted to see. That didn't happen. What happened instead was, as they wrote in the Variety article, instead, not everybody, but a portion of that group re-entrenched, doubled down, and actually upped their attacks on the studio and demand for things and started review bombing other DC movies like Kong versus Godzilla. The director had to come out. The director actually came out and actually tried to, through back channels, reach out to Zack Snyder and say, can you please call people off from review bombing my movie? And it doubled down. And I think that is what eventually led Warner Brothers to feeling like we never should have done this. It seemed like a good idea at the time. It probably was a good idea at the time. I think we ended up getting the superior version of the movie. But if you're the studio, if you could go back and press a button, go back in time and undo it, I think Warner Brothers does. I think they go back, undo it, and keep the money. I mean, everything was like, yes, there was this huge Snyder Cut, release of Snyder Cut movement, but a lot of it was very just positive, and a lot of it was just thing. Eventually it would have died out. I don't know. It's a tough thing because the end result was we got a better movie, but at what cost? So I'm not really sure. Hey guys, we want to take a second to thank the sponsor of this video, Ryan Reynolds, and specifically his delightful company, Mint Mobile. So look, after years of fine print contracts and getting ripped off by big wireless providers, if we've learned anything, it's that there's always a catch. So when I first heard that Mint Mobile offers premium wireless starting at just $15 a month, I thought, what's the catch? But after talking to them and using their service, it all made sense. There isn't a catch. And guys, this is no joke. I have been using Mint Mobile for months now. And on top of the fact that I'm spending literally about 1/3 every month of what I was spending on my former major carrier, I've discovered no decline in my service. I kept my phone number and I was able to keep my phone. The switch from my old service to Mint Mobile couldn't have been easier and saved me more money. And the best part for anybody who just hates their phone bills is that Mint Mobile offers premium wireless for just $15 a month. All of their plans come with unlimited talk and text plus high-speed data delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. Use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and keep your same phone number along with all your existing contacts. To get your new wireless plan for just $15 a month and get the plan shipped to your door for free, go to mintmobile.com/Campea. That's mintmobile.com/Campea. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/Campea. Rob, you're hearing these reports coming out of Variety that, like in the halls of Warner Brothers, the execs who were around during the previous regime are saying, we never should have released this. Is it understandable they feel that way? If you were in those boardrooms and hallways, how do you feel about it?
Well, first of all, I just want to point out that there's a monetary aspect to this. They sold a lot of 4K discs in Europe before HBO Max got to Europe. There's still merchandise coming out. Hot Toys just released a $500 2-pack from Zack Snyder's Justice League of the black-suited Superman and Nightmare Batman. So there's a lot of merchandising that went along with this film that's still being sold today. I think what's unfortunate is that it might have been the greatest triumph in fandom history, getting the Snyder Cut made. And not only that, you know, Zack Snyder went on, and Zack himself now has a deal at Netflix. He's already in production of on Rebel Moon Part 2. Like, we're getting a whole new original Snyderverse, whatever that might be. And I would have thought that the people that want to see the Snyder Cut would be happy with that and then move with Zack Snyder, move with their hero over to his triumphant Netflix deal and support his new vision. I mean, why would you want Zack Snyder to go back to Warner Brothers? Why would you not want to support a filmmaker that you love making a brand new original IP that's going to, you know, had Netflix money behind it? I would think that's where people's efforts should go. Let's support Zack Snyder there. And I think it's unfortunate that we had this great, the release of Snyder Cut, people have one of the greatest triumphs in all fandom history. And that's a win. Like you say, take the win. Take the win and be like, hey, and then follow your boy over to watch what new magic he's going to conjure up. I'm surprised that hasn't happened. And when I've said that to people online, on Twitter, they're like, well, we want both. I'm like, that's not how the world works, man. I mean, it ain't show friends, it's show business.
So, but let me pose a question to you again. You're one of Warner Brothers.
Oh, would I regret it?
You're in the hallways now. And now that all the time has passed and all that kind of stuff, do you feel like either one way of looking at it is like, hey, listen, we were in the top of the news headlines for a while by releasing this, and we were at the top of the news cycle for a while? Or do you look at it as saying it was more trouble than it was worth?
I don't know. I don't think it's more trouble than it's worth, because not only were they able to sell a lot of discs of the Snyder Cut, they also made a companion version of Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice out of it in that same IMAX ratio, the square ratio. So they now have this sort of a piece together. I think there was a lot more out of it business-wise. There's a lot of people who listen to Twitter and all the bitching and moaning and complaining, but I think if you look at the bottom line and you look at the ancillary markets, I think ultimately it was a good investment for the studio, because what it did was it ultimately upped the value of a movie that had no value anymore, which was Justice League, and then it also upped the value, bolstered the value of Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice.
Christian, how do you see it?
I wouldn't regret it if I was a studio executive, because you're also not looking at the human element of it, and not you guys, but in general, that we forget why, from reports, why Zack Snyder was let go, or why he left with the tragedy inside of his life, and he didn't get to get his version out there, right? And I think by letting him and knowing and understanding of what happened to him, and inside of that, and having compassion and going, okay, look, that was a terrible thing that happened to you when that happened, and we're going to release the cut, we're going to do that. Yeah, you can be scorned by thinking, oh, the fans are going to love us for this. They're not there for you. They're not. They were there. They're there for Zack Snyder. They're not there. It doesn't matter what Warner Brothers did, as long as if they kept Zack Snyder and said Zack Snyder was going to do the thing, then maybe they would have done that. But that's not what Warner Brothers wanted to do. But the thing that confuses me, though, is they go, wow, we're not going to do the Snyderverse anymore. We're not going to do. Isn't Ben Affleck coming back? Isn't Aquaman continuing? Isn't Shazam? I mean, that is kind of,
And Wonder Woman.
That is a Snyder.
And The
brings
Flash.
That brings up a discussion I was having with somebody the other day. There's a semantic terminology disconnect, I think, with a lot of people, because different people, I think of different things when they think of Snyderverse. Some people, they hear Snyderverse, they think that's anything that's connected to the movies that he had done before. So Jason Momoa, Aquaman, Wonder Woman. Some people hear the term Snyderverse, they think of an ongoing thing of Zack Snyder,
his story,
like storyboarding and all that kind of stuff, rather than just like still working with the actors.
Yeah,
so
it's slippery, it's a slippery slope.
Different people have different interpretations of it.
Right,
That's
yeah.
why I think it's hard to get.
Yeah, it's tough. It's just a matter. But I think that I just happen to think that if he was the one who introduced a lot of these characters in, and you're still continuing the storyline if Ben Affleck comes back. So it is, in turn, they just don't want to use that terminology because of everything we're talking about here today. Because but I want to address something you said as far as why they don't follow him over to Netflix, right? You got to remember that the majority of Snyder fans were DC fans always first.
Yes.
Right.
And it was like, DC, we want, and when he came in, they're like, this is the guy we want. We want this guy. And then, I also love Man of Steel, right? And these movies come out and they go, this is the guy. All right, he's doing the stuff that we like. And then they're like, well, no, he's out. And they're like, no. What about his movie that he did? Like, well, no, we're not going to show that. We're going to show this thing with the Avengers guy who's directing. And you're like, no. Where's our guy's thing? And that's when it becomes like this thing. And going to Netflix, it's like when Robert Downey Jr., everybody loves Robert Downey Jr. I remember when he goes on to do like The Judge, nobody goes and watches, right? Because they want to see him as Tony Stark. And the same thing, there are a lot of people who follow Zack Snyder over, but they want to see him do DC movies, and I understand it. But I also understand Warner Brothers' position of going, it's time to move on. But I wouldn't regret it. I love the Snyder Cut, by the way.
And you guys bring up great points, because what they really want is this finishing up of the Dark Side saga. They want to see them go to apocalypse.
See, that's what I think some people think when they hear Snyderverse. They think about getting that
continuing
of that.
it.
And I think what's really interesting and ironic, like as you pointed out, the Snyderverse does continue, and all the people that he cast, Aquaman made $1 billion.
Right.
You know, the first Wonder Woman was a huge hit, and now Ben Affleck's coming back. And lest we forget, Ezra Miller's The Flash is also a Snyderverse movie, and we're going to get Michael Keaton and potentially Ben Affleck in that movie too. So I would say that you could even do a box set of the Snyderverse, and it would be I'd buy that box set.
Of course you would.
Yeah, but I mean, but here's the thing. A lot of things you mentioned. By the way, I still think the best movie, the DCU era, that they have had is Zack Snyder's Man of Steel. Like I think that is hands down, and you've heard me say a million times, the most underrated comic book film I think of all time. I
support
I
you.
irrationally love that movie. But that said, when you're talking about Wonder Woman, yeah, it was the person he cast. When you talk about Aquaman, yeah, but that was James Wan's movie. When you're talking about Flash, yeah, but that's Andy Muschietti's
It
movie.
is.
So I think,
why it's
but
a
here's the
universe.
thing: the zombie movie, Army of the Dead, right? Was that the name? Is that what the actual name of it was? Army of the Dead. I think so. That got mixed reactions from people. I remember I actually got to see it in a theater, and I remember I did an out of theater reaction for it. And while Shakespeare it is not, I actually had fun with that movie. It had that kind of bonkers style that Zack Snyder can bring, whether it's a more serious bonkers style like in a 300, or a little bit more levity to it, a little more of the fun aspect to it, like it was in Army. I'm very, very curious to see this Rebel Moon. I don't know what to think, but I know that I liked Army of the Dead, but not everybody did.
I look, with Rebel Moon, I'm expecting a Frank Frazetta painting, like the cover of Princess of Mars,
Right.
some like set between the color of the Molly Hatchet record, the Death Dealer, with another Frazetta painting with the guy on the horse with the axe. I expect to see that mixed with Star Wars. I think that's what Zack Snyder, he's going to give us the most metal science fiction live action opus ever. I expected to have a metal soundtrack. I want to turn it up loud, just like I thought the Snyder Cut, the whole reason I started calling things metal, that movie looks so metal, dude. Yeah. And I want to see the sci-fi version of that. And would I love to see Justice League Part 2? Sure. But that's just never going to happen in the world we live in.
You know what my one concern about Rebel Moon is that I'm freezing on the name of the girl, the actress right now from The Kingsman and from Star Trek.
Sophia Boutella.
Sophia Boutella, who I really enjoy seeing her on screen. I love seeing her on screen in Atomic Blonde. I mean, she can do action, all that kind of stuff. I'm not saying this is gonna. No, I'm saying I'm concerned. I'm wondering. Every time I've seen her on screen, I think she's been very, very solid in a very limited role, because it's always been fairly limited roles she's had.
Always crushing it though.
I am curious, but with limited stuff to do, right? Yeah. On her physicality is like. By the way, if you guys want to see something bonkers, go up on YouTube, look up Sophia Boutella dancing. You want to go down a rabbit hole and be blown away. Like, I think she's one of the planet's best dancers. Like, just her videos, just her dancing are insane. I wonder.
Better than John Campea breakdancing?
Well, that will never be seen. That will never be seen.
Never say never. Release the Campea cut.
But I have not seen anything yet that makes me go, oh my God, that person could carry a movie. And so I wonder about that. Even though I like her a lot, I just wonder about that. But he's got a lot of really other interesting cast attached to it. The premise is fantastic.
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting to see how that goes. Anyway, guys, question is for you. What do you think about this whole situation? The execs in the hallways of Warner Brothers saying they regret that they put the movie out. They probably shouldn't have done it. Do you agree? I think some good things came out of it, like an improved version of the movie. Clearly some bad things came out of it.
Great hot toys.
Some great hot toys. What do you think? Would you regret if you were them? Do you think it was a good move? Whatever you guys think, jump down to the comment section below and leave your thoughts there.